The New York Rangers had a pretty bad start to this regular season, and unfortunately, over the last few games, things have not gotten any better for this team. They continue to put out bad performance after bad performance, and unfortunately, what was at one point looking like a pretty great defense core and a team that was playing some pretty good overall defensive hockey with a goaltender in net there looking like someone who was in kind of prime Vezina form there in Igor Shesterkin. And unfortunately, we have seen both those things, the defense core especially, and mainly them, have taken a pretty massive step back over the last few games here. But also, Igor, I don't think has looked as good as he was to begin this season, earlier on. But of course, I think a big part of that is the defense core just looking a whole lot worse and kind of looking a whole lot closer to what they were last season, unfortunately, when they were an absolutely terrible defense core. And I would say, overall defensively last season, that was probably the biggest reason on why this Rangers team ultimately did not make playoffs. So, having already seen this defense core, take some pretty big steps back over the last few games here and are doing so against some not great teams. I mean, you allow 5 goals in a loss to the Calgary Flames. You allow 6 goals in a loss to the San Jose Sharks. And, they've got some nice offensive pieces there. A guy like Macklin Celebrini, of course, had a hat trick in that game. He looked unreal. He's phenomenal. Obviously, a rising star in this league and is, well, right now, a superstar, of course. But, he is truly one of these kind of, guys who's going to be the face of the NHL for years to come. He's a phenomenal franchise-level player. But this team still should not be going up against two of the literal worst teams in the entire NHL. I mean, at the end of the day, the Sharks and Flames, neither of them are going to even be competing for a wildcard spot, in my opinion. So you've got truly two of the worst teams in the entire NHL, and the Calgary Flames, you could argue, very well might end up being the worst team at the end of the day. After 82 games are played by each team, they very well might end up finishing dead last. And you go up against them in a scenario where you're on a 2-game losing streak, you're coming off of a bad 6-5 loss to a bad San Jose Sharks team at home, a 6-5 OT loss there, and you come out flat, you allow a goal pretty much right away to begin the game. I mean, they scored very, very early on in the game. They end up going up 2-0 there in the first period, and I mean, things just did not look good right from the start in this game, and later on, things got going a little better, and that is something that I have noticed as well, is this Rangers team, it feels like game after game, to begin it, they allow a goal within the first 2 or 3 minutes, pretty much every single game, it feels like at least, and then after that kind of first period goes along there, and as they get going into the second period, and you're 5 or 6 minutes into that second, it feels like the Rangers eventually, sort of in that kind of second half of the game, start to figure things out a little bit there, and in that Calgary game, for example, had a pretty awful first period, but then as the game got going later on into the second and third period, they started to create a little more and started to get a little more going, but of course, they still weren't able to really kind of capitalize on a bunch of their chances. Dustin Wolf had a good game in net there, but once again, it's a scenario where the Rangers are creating some good looks, but just cannot seem to find the back of the net. And then, of course, they allow 5 to a bad Flames team there who has a lot of trouble scoring. I mean, they're not a good offensive team. They're a bad offensive team. They don't have a lot of firepower up there, and you allow 5 goals. It's just an awful look there for this team. So I think right now, this Rangers team is in a pretty rough spot, and if they want to have a chance at making playoffs here, they're going to have to figure things out pretty quickly because, this team has some pretty major issues, and right now, they are having these big issues caused because a lot of their top players, especially on the offensive side of things, are just doing pretty much nothing. A guy like Vincent Trocheck, I think, has been a pretty big loss on offense, but that is no excuse for how bad this team has truly been. I mean, Zibanejad had a pretty decent start there to the season, but he's, looked a lot worse as of late. Same thing with a guy like Panarin who, started off a little bad there, then started to heat up there for a few games, but now is kind of falling back off there. He's not doing much at all. You've got the captain, JT Miller, who, game after game is just not looking like the guy that we saw last season there, unfortunately. And it is still early on in the season there, and it's not like the Rangers are, 10, 20 points out of a wildcard spot here, but they're falling back. And if they keep up this kind of play here, they're not going to win too many games, and they're going to fall back out of that spot and fall way to the race pretty quickly here. So I think it is a bad spot for this team right now. I am getting a little worried here, of course, and I still do have some faith that they're going to make playoffs, but if they really don't turn things around quickly, like I said, they're going to fall back and they're going to fall real far because they're just not playing good hockey and they're playing some absolutely terrible hockey against some of the worst teams in the entire NHL. So when they go up against the Oilers in a couple days here, or a few days, on Thursday or whatever, and they're going up against, an offense that has Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. And I know McDavid hasn't been on fire to begin this season, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up, starting his kind of hot streak there against the Rangers by putting up a hat trick and 2 assists there in a, 7-2 win with the way this team's playing right now, or a 7-1 win, honestly, as we probably can't score more than 1 goal. And, that's just kind of the way this season has kind of gone. So I think it's been really rough. The offense has been bad. And I mean, they had a few games here and there where they're able to kind of score a bit, but for the most part this team is scoring like 1 or less goals per game, it feels like, which of course is just not going to cut it. They've got to be a whole lot better in pretty much all areas of their game. And really the only positive that I saw in this 5-1 loss to the Calgary Flames was, of course, Noah Laba scoring his first career NHL goal, which I think was great to see. Of course, he's now got 10 games played, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. Nothing too crazy, of course, but this entire team offensively hasn't done a whole lot there, so I can't be too upset with those numbers from a rookie. And I think his goal was pretty nice, though, of course. It was right after the Flames scored their second to make it 2-0. Literally right away, Laba just kind of comes down, flies in the zone there, and ends up just ripping one past Wolf. So it was a pretty nice goal there for his first of his career, but of course, it ends up not meaning a whole lot as his team can't do anything else after that offensively and end up losing the game 5-1 after Laba made it 2-1. And next up here, we're going to take a look at a few quotes here from JT Miller and Mike Sullivan, and these quotes were taken by Vince Mercogliano and Molly Walker. But JT Miller goes on to say, quote, "You just can't be okay with coming out flat," Rangers captain JT Miller said after the Rangers dropped to 3-5-2 on the season. Quote, "We're in no position to come out flat, be in the right mindset. We're ready to go. We got outplayed again in the first period. It kind of set the tone. Thought we had a good second period. Couple mistakes hurt us. But other than that, we had a good second period, a good third. We're obviously not getting a ton of bounces offensively, which is more of a reason." And that is a thing. I mean, they are, like I said, looking a little better as the game goes along, but at that point, it kind of feels like it doesn't matter a whole lot because they're already down game after game in the first period very early on, and it just feels like it kind of kills this team, just kind of energy-wise. Like, the energy just kind of dies right away because this team's getting off to such a bad start game after game. So I think that's something that they're going to absolutely have to fix because it's become a pretty major problem. They also go on to say, quote, "There's no excuses to coming up flat. It sucks. This is not fun right now. We need to correct the starts. I think it's becoming like the trend now, so we need to fix this now on this trip. I mean, it's a hard road trip, so we got to be ready to go start the game." And that is the thing, though. They absolutely must fix this early kind of start problem here because game after game, if you're starting down 1 or 2-0 every single game early on, halfway through the first at least, or if not in the first couple minutes, that really sets you back right to begin the game there, and it just sucks the life out of your team right from the beginning of the game. So I think they really need to work on that and have to come out better in starting these games because you can't start every single game down 1 or 2-0 early on within like 5 minutes of the game. It just can't happen game after game. And now we've got the last quote here, this one from Mike Sullivan, where he goes on to say, quote, "We're not at our best right now, and we've got to find a way to dig our way out of it. I just think it starts with the effort and just attention to detail on the defensive side. I thought for a lot of this year, we had done a real good job at controlling the defensive side of the puck and limiting not only quality of chances, but quantity of chances. I thought tonight the types of mistakes we made, they're egregious, they're really hard to recover from, and we gave them some pretty good looks as a result." And that is absolutely true. In that game against Calgary, this Rangers team did not look good defensively, and that's kind of what I've been saying, They started off things looking pretty decent defensively. I mean, first game, of course, things didn't go too great, but things started to look a little better defensively, and this team was playing some pretty phenomenal defensive hockey. But over the last, kind of 2, 3, 4 games, whatever it's been, it kind of felt like the defensive plays started to slip away from this team a bit there, and this team is just really going to have to figure things out and be a whole lot better defensively if they want to actually make the playoffs this season. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post a video about the New York Rangers every single day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on the New York Rangers and kind of how they're playing as of late. Are you as disappointed as I am? I'm sure lots of you are, of course. What are your thoughts on this team offensively, defensively? What do you think's been the biggest problem for this team? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.